It's Monday and it's game day here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Steelers, Texans, Acrisure Stadium. We break it all down here and why the Steelers have to be the team no one expects them to be in these playoffs if they want to win. I'm Chris Carter on the Locked On Steelers podcast, joined today by Jenna Harner. It's going to be a fun one. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to make us to listen to us every day because we are your team every day. A reminder that this show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially part of in playoff mode now. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As I said before, we're joined by the amazing Jenna Harner. She's back from Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, the Steelers team, like Cam Hayward said, no one wanted them in, but they're in. And now they have a chance to pull off an upset. Now, I want to say before we get into all this, we are recording this before the Patriots-Chargers game. We know the Bills have defeated the Jaguars, but we're recording this before that game, so we do not officially have the note if the Steelers would host a playoff game should they win. But we're saying this now. If the Patriots win, the Steelers will go to New England. They cannot go to Denver because the Bills have won. However, if the Chargers win, the Steelers, with a win against the Texans, would host the Bills for a second playoff game. But to get there, they've got to beat this Texans team, and this is an aggressive Texans defense, Jenna, that poses a big test for Aaron Rodgers.
It absolutely does. And I mean, I keep going back to what Mike Tomlin said earlier in the week, where he called Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter the best edge rushing tandem in the league, which if you're TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, I'm assuming you feel a little bit slighted by your own head coach saying that. But honestly, it's so true. When you just look at this Texans defense, they have a Pro Bowler on every level. They have so many different ways they can attack you. And it doesn't appear to me like there's this major weakness among that group. They have so many playmakers, so many guys who can come up in big moments. And the Steelers offense knows that they have their work cut out for them. However, I think it's going to be a closer game than a lot of people anticipate if the Steelers play the way they come into this game, the way that they expect to play with the game plan they're going in with this week.
I think so too. I think that the Steelers have a plan to go into this game and to be aggressive, to take the shots where teams have not expected them to, because this is a Steelers team that of late we've seen them. You saw in that Ravens game, their ability to throw the ball downfield even without DK Metcalf was why they won that game. They got the ball downfield to Pat Freiermuth, to Calvin Austin, to Adam Thielen, to those guys. If DK Metcalf's back, this is your chance to strike at that part of the Texans defense. As I said before last week, and we also had our bonus episode where we answered a lot of your calls this weekend. Thank you to everyone who called in with the questions. Sorry for those we didn't get to. But this Texans defense, for all the things that it ranks high in, it ranks low. It's one of the league's worst teams in defending third down and long. It's also one of the worst teams at defending the deep ball. It's in the bottom half of the league in deep ball catches allowed, deep ball yards allowed, and they're in the bottom half of the league in explosive pass rate allowed. This is your chance for the Steelers. You know you want to win with running the ball. They know you want to win with running the ball. You know you want to win by checking it down to Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell and letting them make guys miss and move the ball safely down the field without putting too much pressure on Aaron Rodgers or on your offensive line to hold up against that pass rush. But the thing is, the Texans know that too. Where the Texans don't know is that you can, and I think will, take shots downfield with your playmakers. And as I said, and I led off the bonus show that we aired Saturday night going into Sunday about that has to include Pat Freiermuth, hitting him down the seams, letting him work against their linebackers, their safeties, their slot corner. That's going to be a huge part of this game. And if the Steelers can hit that, especially early, it can put this defense on their heels and open up a lot of the run game and the shots underneath that they want to lead with.
And I know so many people, going back to the Week 18 game against the Ravens, so many people were asking, why are they not getting Pat Freiermuth involved more? They're missing DK. Where's Pat Freiermuth? I think the Ravens, and they really explained it well on the broadcast too, the Ravens took away Pat Freiermuth as much as they could in that matchup because of the offensive threat that he poses. So
Right.
now you're coming in, you have DK Metcalf, a guy that opposing defenses have to scheme for in ways that is just completely changes the game when he's in versus whether he's out of the lineup with the suspension the last couple weeks prior to this game. But I think this game is going to be big for Pat Freiermuth. I also think that I go back to who said that. It was Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers after the win, it was either after the win or earlier in the week, basically talked about how games like that game against the Ravens can really kind of create that belief and create that ripple effect in the locker room and say, hey, we know how to win games these ways. We know how to win these types of close, down to the wire, back and forth fight type of games. I think specifically, though, a guy like Calvin Austin has a lot of belief in himself, too, after the performance that he had, because he's been so up and down this season. There has been some inconsistency from him. There's been games where he hasn't been involved a lot. There's been games where I feel like I go back to the week 1 against the Jets. And of course, this past week, he makes big plays. So I think this is kind of the perfect storm for this offense and what they want to do. The Texans also, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, don't fare very well in the red zone in terms of the way that they hold up defensively.
Correct.
So teams struggle to get into the red zone against this Houston team, but once they do, they find ways to score. And we know, we've talked about this all season, how much of an advantage that's been for the Steelers this year. So that's going to be a big thing I'm watching throughout this matchup, is if the Steelers can move the ball down the field decently, consistently, and have some sustained drives and find that short, quick passing game to Kenneth Gainwell and Jaylen Warren that we've seen a lot this year. But I like also what you said about the deep shots, because I'm talking to some people who cover the Texans throughout the week. They said the one a weakness, I don't even want to say it's that because it might not be that, but the Texans, when you can run the ball against them, don't fare so well. So that's going to be a big thing, but you have to do so much, of course, to open up the run game. And I think if the Steelers can do that, that will be a way they find success.
I agree. And again, the deep passing isn't saying, hey, just spam all streaks in Madden, baby. Just throw it deep every play. It's pick your spots, get your one-on-ones, and take them and see through their aggressive plays where they're trying to send heat your way or they're leaving guys in one-on-one that you think that you can win. That's how you take your deep shots in this game, because the entire point of the deep shot is to set up the run. And again, the quick passes, the dump offs where the running backs can make plays underneath. The Texans also don't rank too well in missed tackle rates in the NFL. They have to get better at that. I think that they've said that they have to get better at that. So when I look at this Texas team, you're right. They don't rank high. In fact, they rank dead smack in the middle of the league, 16th in red zone touchdown percentage, allowed the Steelers 11th in touchdown percentage on offense. So that is a key point for this Steelers team. Can they find a way to be able to move the ball, get in the red zone, and then let themselves work it? Again, possessing the football. That's another key element that could work against the Texans' blueprint. They are 4th in time of possession in the NFL. The Steelers 29th. And we know a lot of that's racked up the Steelers to be 29th is the earlier part of the season. But in the final 4 to 5 weeks, they've been much better at possessing the football and holding on to it. If they can channel that, get some big plays, get the run game going, that's the thing that can set an offensive tone that maybe gets this Texans defense that ranks 2nd in points allowed, 1st in yards allowed in the NFL on their heels, get them off balance, and get a couple, get some scores that gives the Steelers maybe a lead to protect.
And it's so interesting, too, because I'm sure you've broken this down a ton this week, but I love, the Texans don't really give all these, disguises and crazy looks. Right. They basically just present it and they say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We are better than you. We're not hiding anything. We're not really disguising any coverages. Exactly. This is what we're showing up. And so I'm going to be also really intrigued to see how Aaron Rodgers adapts to that and what he does, because again, how much have we talked about all season long? Mike Tomlin mentioning this is why you go out there and do business with a guy, a 42-year-old quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, because of the veteran savviness, because he's seen it all. We've seen so many times just his football IQ. And I know that can kind of be a fun word to throw around, but Rodgers has those smarts where, we've seen him rush things to the line of scrimmage really quickly when it seems like it's a play that he knows might go the other way. That was kind of a catch that may or may not have been on the line type thing, or when he catches teams with 12 men on the field defensively. So it's going to be that chess match, I think, and it's going to be so interesting to watch just how Rodgers adapts to this and what he does. But this is going to be a massive test for the Steelers, no doubt, and this is going to be the toughest test arguably they faced, but I know it was such a small sample size. I go back to last week's game between the Colts and the Texans, and yes, the Texans only played their starters in the first half, but watching Riley Leonard find some holes in that Texans in the first half against the starters, something Ian Eagle and JJ Watt both brought up on the broadcast, that it was against the starters in the first half. He found a lot of ways to kind of make some big plays against them, and using Alec Pierce, their big tight end too. So is he a wide receiver? Why did I do that? I'm not sure in my brain.
No, Alec Pierce, wide receiver.
Yeah, okay. I said tight end. He's a receiver. But utilizing Alec Pierce and his big body to be able to find ways. I think DK Metcalf is going to be a much more crucial part of this game than Mike Tomlin let on earlier this week. And the Steelers are going to need him to be.
I agree entirely. The Steelers offense in a playoff game, a Steelers offense in any playoff game, has not scored a touchdown that is tied or given them the lead since their January 8th, 2017 win over the Dolphins. That is how long ago the Steelers offense has scored a touchdown that's either given them a lead or tied. The only other touchdown that they've scored that's given them a lead in that span was TJ Watt's fumble recovery and touchdown against the Chiefs in 2022. The offense has been leaving them lacking in a lot of these playoff games. They cannot afford to do so in this game, but the defense has to come out, because the defense has also let them down in some of those. I want to talk about the defense has to watch out for. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into player projections for the first time, trying something new can feel like a challenge, but with Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never slows down, and Prize Picks lets you stay in control. Prize Picks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No drafts, no waiting, just pick more or less and play your way. Getting started on Prize Picks was quick and simple. The app is super easy to navigate. It's made watching games more engaging, especially when following individual player performances. I love the flexibility with options like Flex Play, where you can still get paid even if one pick misses. The early payout feature is a great bonus, where when your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. We're also brought today by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you predicting in a live market. You can buy or sell positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moment that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never knew there was a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part in live actual markets powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. I'm your host, Chris Carter. We continue our show here with Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, the Steelers face a Texans offense that, while not ranked as high as the Texans defense, they still are respected. They're the 13th best scoring offense. They rank 18th in yards, 14th in passing yards. This is an offense that is balanced. They do a lot of work to protect CJ Stroud, and as I point out in a preview piece that I have in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, that's post-gazette.com. You should go there to check it out and read what we got going there. This is an offense that does a lot to protect CJ Stroud, not just in their protection itself, but in how they style their entire play. They run the ball, not efficiently, but they do enough. If they're a team, when they're the team that they come out and they run the ball, they're doing that to set up the QB rollouts to the left or the right. When I looked it up, according to Sports Information Systems, they have the most passing yards on QB rollouts of any team in the NFL. That's a huge part of what they do to set up CJ Stroud and keep him clean, and that's something the Steelers have to account for when they face this Texans defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was, you go back, I know what you meant though. You go back to last year, and this Texans offensive line was a massive problem for them. And so coming into this season, that was a big, or I should say this offseason, that was a big point of emphasis for them, was getting better in that area. But to me, there are that might be their biggest weakness on offense. That might be where the Steelers can look to attack. And hey, when your head coach is saying that the opposing pass rushers there are the best tandem in the league, if you're TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, Jack Sawyer included in this conversation too, you're taking a little bit of slight to that. So I think this can be a really solid matchup for the Steelers Steelers defensively, as they look to get after the Texans offense and look to bring CJ Stroud to the ground. But it's going to be, how much can they limit what they do? Because the Texans offense is kind of, appears to me like a death by 1,000 paper cuts type offense. They're not really creating these massive splash plays. They're not having a lot of big explosive plays downfield. They've had a couple on the season that have obviously aided them very well, but that's not their offensive identity. They're really more of, they're going to gain 6 yards on first down. They're going to keep the chains moving. They're going to stay ahead of the sticks. And if the Steelers pass rush can get home and can find ways to get after Stroud and can find ways to, force the Texans into 3rd and long and absolute passing situations, that can be an opportunity, a part of the game, an aspect, I guess, where the Steelers defense can take advantage.
I agree, because that's the script that they need to be on. They need to keep this Texans team in situations where they can do it. Because on the flip side, the Texans offense is also very bad in the red zone. They're 30th in red zone touchdown percentage. The Steelers actually a top 10 red zone defense, ranking 7th in touchdowns percentage allowed. That's where I think that this could be an interesting game for the Steelers. The Texans also don't run the ball efficiently. They run the ball decently, but they rank 28th in yards per carry. This is a chance for the Steelers. If they can stuff that run, if they can contain the rollouts, take away the quick passes, and not allow the explosive plays that they did last week against the Ravens, they could put CJ Stroud in several 3rd and long situations, and that's where you want them. Now, CJ Stroud has also been good at 3rd and long. They rank among the I think among the top 10 in the NFL in that regard. But they also haven't been in it a whole lot, and that's where I think that the Steelers can get them. If they can force that situation, they could get there. Here was TJ Watt. We were asking questions of him about the Texans and this playoff game. TJ Watt in the Steelers locker room on Saturday.
What do the Texans do to try to offset the pressure and protect CJ so well? They do a good job of keeping him clean.
Running the ball first and foremost is a good job of it, but they also move the pocket. There's some boots, there's some roll pass, things of that nature, but staying on schedule more than anything is what can help protect the quarterback.
Looking back on the year when you guys haven't been able to set the edge as much or win up front, what has been the problem? What have you guys corrected to make sure that that's not an issue for you guys now?
I think it's a mix of a lot of things, man. I think at the end of the day, we all understand what playing solid defense is, and we just need to continue to do that.
I think that's the thing here. The Steelers know what they've done wrong this season, and there's a chance to correct it against a team against an offense that I think doesn't have the overpowering skill set at the offensive line or at the playmaker positions to make them jump out of their positions. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson were a dynamic duo that forced them to say, hey, you know what? We're going to oversell and stop the run, stop the QB option, hurt us with your arm deep. They did, but not enough, as Mike Tomlin said. We chose the hill to die on, but we didn't. The key in this game, to me, is to maintain that balance, win your matchups, win your one-on-ones up front, and then allow that secondary to be aggressive, because James Pierre is healthy, Joey Porter Jr. is healthy, the safeties won't have to overplay their positions and play downhill as much. You can force this Texans team into situations that let your secondary play well and play aggressive and maybe create some turnovers, something the Texans don't do. Also, CJ Stroud, when he's protected, when he's not under pressure, 18 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. When he is pressured, 5 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. His completion rate also goes from 71 to 46. It is ridiculous how different it is when you get pressure on CJ Stroud. That's why it's huge for the Steelers to stop the run and then dial up that pressure while letting the coverage still be aggressive.
Yeah, and of course, the game plan, going into the Ravens game had to be so focused on Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and just the ability for them to both run in the differences and the different styles that they both run in. But you're right, this can be a little bit more of a balanced opportunity here. And I think a massive matchup is going to be Joey Porter Jr. and Nico Collins. You go back to the last time that these two teams met back in 2023, I believe, and it was just when Joey Porter Jr. was first kind of getting into things. I think he might have only played like 10 snaps or something like that. He had a very low snap count, but this was kind of the pivot point for the Steelers where they had to look and say, we are going to need to get him up to speed a little bit more, simply because the corners that are in there currently cannot win these battles against a player like this. And JJ Watt talked about it on the broadcast last week in the Colts-Texans game. The way that Nico Collins runs routes is such a unique style, and he's gotten so much better at I hope I'm phrasing this correctly, but just the way that he can explode off the top of his route, and he's gotten so quick that you don't entirely know which direction he's going in until it's already too late and you're already burned if you're a DB. So for me, this is going to be a big test for Joey Porter Jr., but I think that when you look at the numbers and you look at the season he's had, this is a prime opportunity for Porter Jr. to basically say, look, I've been having a phenomenal season. He's given up one touchdown on the year, I believe. And did it come last week, or
no?
Is it still
Porter
okay?
has not given up a single touchdown all year long, and that stretches back to last year as well. His only touchdown he's ever given up in the NFL was as a rookie the week before he became a starter.
Yeah. So this Joey Porter Jr.'s game has grown so much. And we talked going back to the end of Hard Knocks, that scene last year where him and Grady Brown sat down and he challenged him to get better. And I think that he's risen to the occasion. He's been having a really spectacular season, in my opinion. So I'm going to be very, very, very interested just to see how this back and forth battle between him and Collins shakes out, and just how often they basically look to isolate Joey Porter Jr. and just have him in that one-on-one matchup and say, hey, go win this, go out there and do that. And I think he's going to have a big opportunity to do that a lot in this game.
Joey Porter Jr., huge matchup with Nico Collins this week. As Jenna said, no touchdowns allowed. He has been phenomenal this year. And this is going to be, I think, a really interesting matchup. If the Steelers can stop the run, that could play into that matchup. If Joey Porter Jr. can win there like he's won pretty much all this season, and CJ Stroud has to take a deep shot into that coverage, this might be the opportunity for him to be the X factor in this game. With all that being said, we got to get to one more break. When we come back, it's time to give our picks for Steelers Texans here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel's users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets that you like the most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts give you more juice on the bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new. Every play feels bigger, and every boost makes your bets feel that way too. You make your picks and apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts. So visit FanDuel, which partner with NFL, and grab your profit boost back every NFL play. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter, Jenna Harner. Jenna, it's time to get to our outlook on this game. Before we get to our final score predictions and all that, give me your X factor, the biggest thing that plays into this game, matchup-wise, personnel-wise. What do you see?
There's a lot of directions I could go with this, but I'm going Pat Freiermuth on offense. I'm going to be very interested to see how much the Steelers can get him involved. And again, we've all had so much talk about the reasons that he's been involved this season, his lack of usage, why aren't they using him more? Why aren't they incorporating him more? To me, he's going to be a massive X factor in what this offense can do and how much it can open things up. I know that we've talked about they need to get the short passing game going. I know that they need to sustain a little bit of the run game, and they need to be able to possess the football. But if they're going to look to scheme a lot of things in DK's direction. So Can Pat Freiermuth make some of those big plays, those big crucial third down conversions to keep drives alive? That's going to be a massive factor in my opinion here. And I think if the Steelers can do that, then they will be maintaining the ball more. They'll have a lot more, they'll have possession and be, again, able to sustain drives. And I think that could bode very well in their favor, but there's a lot of different directions you could go with this one in terms of the X factor.
Absolutely. My X factor, it's going to be which defensive line outplays the opposing offensive line more. Can the Steelers defensive line beat up on this Texans offensive line that has been up and down this year? Again, the Texans do a lot strategically to protect this offensive line. But if the Steelers defense, especially Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon, if those guys on the interior whip blocks, get guys down and make it so that the linebackers can be aggressive, take away the run, that's going to set up those formations where Herbig, Watt, and Highsmith can be on the field more often on those third downs, and they can really get after CJ Stroud and put him in those disadvantageous situations. Now, the Texas defensive front is very dangerous. Tommy Togiai is a bad man. Sheldon Rankins, but of course, Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, they're all nasty too. They're going to be getting after it. But if the Steelers offensive line, the group that's been invested in the most in the Omar Khan early part of his era as GM, if they can just mitigate that pass rush and that defensive front from the Texans while the Steelers win on their side, that to me can be the thing that makes the Steelers competitors in this game and put CJ Stroud on a foothold where he's not comfortable while allowing Aaron Rodgers to be slightly more comfortable and allow him to be aggressive in this game. All of that plays a huge factor in this matchup. Receivers, corners, all those things are going to be huge. But when in those trenches and the Texans are out of their element and the Steelers are in theirs.
Yep. No, I completely agree with you too. And I think that if the Steelers can get the Texans out of the game that they want to play, especially offensively, that is going to be the matchup that they want. And that's going to be the way that they can kind of bring Houston down to their level. Because how much have we talked about, okay, this is the number one defense in the league, all of this. This feels like if the Steelers can get the Texans to play in that rock fight, close game style that they thrive in, that is going to be the way and the formula for them to come out and win this game and advance to the next round of the postseason.
I really think while everyone's talking about the Texans defense, the Steelers defense could be the key. The Texans have lost 5 games this year. In all 5 of those games, they have not scored 20 points. That if the Steelers defense keeps the Texans offense in check and Aaron Rodgers just gets aggressive a little bit and sets a tone and lets them play ahead, that could be the key to finding a win in this game. With that being said, Jenna, give us how you see this game playing out and your final score prediction for who's going to win.
I see it being a little bit shaky early on. I think kind of it's one of those both teams feel each other out and kind of, there's back and forth and there's some punts early. But I think the Steelers offense, as they've done a little bit, take out the Cleveland game, but they've settled down once they kind of get things going a little bit. I go back to the Ravens game. They really settled. They found ways to sustain drive, to score points. And again, I think if they can make CJ Stroud uncomfortable, like we've mentioned a lot on this show, that is going to be the key for them to come out with a victory. And your point about their 5 losses, not scoring more than 20 points, I do see that happening. I see the Steelers coming away with a 20-17 win.
What?
It's going to be low scoring. How much have we talked about Mike Tomlin on Monday night? I think the Steelers say, hey, we haven't won a playoff game in 8 years. That streak ends right now. I think the home field advantage is going to play a massive factor. And also, I know everybody around Pittsburgh has talked about this stat, but dome teams that go on the road and play games when it's under 40 degrees, I believe they're 1-16.
Wow.
The numbers aren't necessarily in their favor.
Wow. That's huge right there. And ladies and gentlemen, even more important than when dome teams play in the cold is Jenna Harner picking. When she picks, that happens. That's what's happened all year long. She finished, I think, 4th place in our season-long bets. She didn't get in our playoff bracket challenge.
Yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did.
I didn't see it. Oh, okay.
Did I not submit it? Oh, I would be so bummed if I didn't submit that because I did.
Okay. I didn't find you in our picks. We will work. No, you are here. It just didn't pop up when I searched you. Okay, great.
Yes.
Oh, wow. You and I have a lot of things in common here. Well, at least so far. But you picked the Jaguars, so I'm ahead of you. But anyways, we're going to talk about this a lot more moving forward because I think there's going to be a lot headed in. But let me get you my pick here. Because last week, as I said, when Jenna picks the Steelers and I don't, they typically win. So as the host of the Locked On Steelers podcast, it is beholden upon me to uphold that tradition. I will pick the Steelers to lose 50-0. The Texans are going to destroy them. They're going to destroy it. If the Steelers prove me wrong, I shall wear the bag of shame for a second week in a row, whatever it is. I will wear the bag of shame yet again because the Steelers could win this game. Jenna Harner said so. Don't trust me. Go with Jenna Harner. That's our picks here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.
Nervous.
Jenna, thanks so much for joining us here. We hope that everyone has a great Monday. Well, I'll see you Monday at Acrisure Stadium, but let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jenna Harner 11, Instagram Jenna_Harner, and join us on Channel 11 immediately after the game. We'll have a live post-game show. I'll be in studio breaking all things down. We'll take you inside the podium room. Shelby Cassesi, my co-anchor, will be inside the locker room. So turn over to Channel 11 after that game, and we'll see you there.
Absolutely. She's Jenna Harner. Thank you, Jenna, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, wherever you get social media. My handle is always at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. I'm still writing there. People said we might be closing, but we are fighting it every day. Go read my preview story on how this defense matches up with the Texans to get more in depth there. And as always, you can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of those daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content, like our Saturday night episode that came out this weekend. After you get done watching Channel 11, turn into the Locked On Steelers podcast and the Locked On Steelers Squad Show. We'll have a lot of content over this game, win or lose. We'll see here if I'm wearing the bag of shame here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll see you then after Monday Night Football in the playoffs.